sometimes asking really stupid questions is sort of how you can accomplish things. Like, well, why couldn't we do that? And like,
so anyone who's never heard of C.H. Guenther, tell us what they do, and then how you got into food science and where you're at now.
Sure. So our mantra at C.H. Guenther is we create memorable moments through the power of food. What that means is we take pretty straightforward ingredients and we turn them into products that everyone eats all the time, whether they're aware there are products or not. So we're behind biscuits, buns, artisan breads, desserts, gravies, sauces, tortillas, and those are served in restaurants, stocked on grocery store shelves, or in folks' pantries.
Well, so tell me about, so you and I, we have other hobbies that we enjoy where you don't have to be precise, but I think baking, they call it edible chemistry. So what are some things about baking that most like home cooks don't think about?
Well, kind of some big things there are yeast is a living thing, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about baking, there's sort of two different types of baking there. Okay. So you've got your yeast-raised things, so that's going to be your breads, right? And then you've also got chemically leavened, so that's baking powder, right? Those are two very different sorts of things. One of them is, solely chemical. The other one, there's a creature there. There's yeast that's making it happen. So I think when you're dealing with a living thing like yeast, it could be temperamental. It's sort of an animal. So I think folks, when it comes to baking, especially things that are yeast raised, they think, oh, I can just follow this recipe and it's going to tell me what to do. And there's a lot of flex that goes into it. Yeah. People need to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, okay. So some of the things that you and I also enjoy, coffee. I think coffee is fascinating because there's this yeast element, especially now with these new inoculation. Yeah. Tell me about that.
We could go in at length for that.
I know we could talk about many. We could talk about what coffee. We both had like a rum era. We really delved into rums. Yeah. But let's
more yeast. I mean, really,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We are fermentation people at the end. We did beer for a while too. Yeah. So tell me about tell me about your experience with coffee and yeast. Have you explored all the different?
I am literally working through some coffee right now that I did not fully read the information. It says that it was made with yeast from it said cocoa bean and citrus yeast, which I guess it's gathered off those things. And anyway, it's pretty loud.
Interesting. Yeah, I have not had that.
Yeah, actually, for us, really, when it comes to yeast, I mean, we're not typically using any sort of crazy yeast. It's by and large not different from what you get in the grocery store.
Well, if you control all the variables, the temperature, oxygen, CO2 output, you can kind of make it behave very straightforward. Would you disagree? For
the most part, it's just there's so many variables that go into baking. So that's, again, what I think folks in their home kitchens kind of fail to understand. The other thing I was going to mention is for people that do home baking, I think they think that when they set their ovens to 400 degrees, that their oven's actually 400 degrees, like that's just the temperature it holds at, and that ain't how it works. There's wide temperature bands. What your oven says it is not usually what it is, and there's a lot of adjustments that have to be.
Well, I also think like the moment you open, all of this is out, and then we put it in, and I don't know what it drops down to, but I've never measured.
A lot.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
You of all people should.
Well, I know, but this is the problem with there's certain things you just refuse to be that accurate. Like you live the rest of your life measuring and quantifying all things. You're like, no, for this, I'm going to wing it. This is when you say I'm doing the art of baking, not the science of baking.
Well, and that's actually, mentioning art versus science. That is something where we think about for a cookie, a biscuit, a pancake, things that are chemically leavened. Those are pretty straightforward science-y things that as long as you follow all the directions correctly, they typically work more often than they don't. For yeast-raised stuff, there's just, again, I used the term flex earlier, you've got to be comfortable getting used to it, and that's where it becomes art. And so people that are really good at baking, they've got that feel down. Yeah. And that's something that, we even instill in folks that are working on the lines in our plants, is like trying to get them to understand, like, when you see this happening, here's what the adjustment might be. Here's why it's happening. Here's why it needs to be controlled, and here's what the end result will be.
Yeah, so as a group that's trying to put out consistency all the time, like, yeah, I mean, how do you teach someone the feel of like, oh, that's looking a little weird, go, I don't know, what do you
So, right. So, I mean, we've got several very experienced experts, subject matter expert bakers, and they're out there, talking to the guys on the line and helping them to understand the process. And a lot of it is literally feel. What does it feel like? What does it look like? And how to understand that, you think of an ingredient like flour, well, this load of flour may have more moisture than that load of flour, or today's ambient temperature may be 2 degrees warmer than it was yesterday. It makes an impact. So kind of helping people to understand how does that work helps you deliver consistency.
Okay, so, and if this is off limits, let me know. But one of the things I think is so interesting, and we've talked about this a lot, is kind of the reverse engineering of recipes. So let's say someone approaches you with a gravy mix, and they say, I would love a gravy mix as good as this, because everyone already loves it. So where do you start? What's that process?
Yeah, I mean, well, first we ask a lot of questions. So that actually is a big part of it, is you try to see how much information can you get. I mean, at a minimum, you can get an ingredient deck, but you can't do a heck of a lot with an ingredient deck on its own. You can make some assumptions, and there's great little tricks that we can use. The less than 2% part that's on some ingredient decks. You can look at that and say, okay, well, I know everything to the left of that's more than 2%, and you also some basics about things like, well, the fat amount in that's going to be between 12 and 14%. So I've got another spot.
How is that known? Is that just like gravies tend to be 12 to 14? That's like the thing.
Yeah, and frankly, gravies is like the worst thing you can ask me about, because there's stuff that I could kind of write down, back of the envelope guesstimates of it, but I am not a gravy expert. Fortunately, we have actual PhDs that are gravy experts.
Okay, well, if you're not a gravy expert, what's yours? Let's pick yours. Let's work from that.
Yeah, so I mean,
like if I went and I said, these Hawaiian sweet rolls are awesome, I want to make a version of this.
Yeah. well, no, and that's actually a good example, right? So breads are pretty straightforward. Most breads don't have a ton of fat in them. They're usually relatively short ingredient decks, and when you see a lot of stuff in there, then it raises a lot of questions. So, again, you can kind of go over an ingredient deck, and if it's a product that you're familiar with, you can kind of pencil in estimates of the percentages to start with. And when something's out of order, it triggers you to know that, okay, there's something else going on here. But really, for the most part, you try the thing. If you don't have any other information, you try the thing and start thinking, well, what is this like that we've done before? And I mean, being around for 175 years, we have a pretty good back catalog of things to work off of as starting places.
So then you make the product you think is as good. What's the next step? Okay,
so it will rarely just be me who's deciding if it's as good.
Yeah, well, but I'm saying, like, the product, you guys in the lab were like, haha, we have Frankenstein this thing. Now we need to demonstrate some level of...
Well, right. So let's say this request is coming in from a customer, and maybe they want a new supplier, they don't like the price they're getting, or maybe they want a secondary supplier, like, yeah, we've grown, we need to double our volume of this, and so would you like to be a secondary supplier? In a lot of those cases, you're going to get way more information than just an ingredient deck, which is nice. But we always know that just because I decide that something is a perfect match, and that's what we call this, by the way, matching. Just because we decide that something's a perfect match doesn't mean that the person that we're ultimately trying to sell it to will think it's a perfect match. So we do have full sensory capabilities, and so we will run sensory panels and sort of show, first of all, if we're not there yet, then we have more work to do. So just because maybe the scientist that's working on it thinks it's done, well, if the sensory panel says different, then we might have to go back to the drawing board. And yeah, once we get a pass on a sensory panel, then we feel confident we can go into the customer and show, hey, panelists believe that this is the same, so you should too.
Okay. I'm just curious if you ever have a customer say, well, I still don't think it's right.
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
And so, yes, at a certain point, you try to talk them into doing something. Maybe you talk them into putting it into test somewhere. I mean, if you feel confident in it and you've got the sensory data that says it's a match, then you can try to encourage them to do that. But yes, that's what sales is for.
Well, okay, what does it take to be on a sensory panel? Is that like, do you train people and then call them in and say,
So-
it's time?
Generally, so for us in our office, we got a lot of folks that work in the office. So we use folks that are in the building. We have a pretty diverse staff from all over. I'll say 20 years ago, it was a bunch of people from Texas that worked in our office. And now it's really diverse as far as where people are coming from. So we've got a pretty good cross-section of the U.S. just in our offices. So we primarily use internal for that sort of a thing, and we do trainings there every couple of years. We'll do some sensory training just to help people understand what it is they're doing. But to some degree, you don't want them to be overtrained, right? Like, you want honest opinions. Although other times we would like to put our thumb on the scale and say, just ignore everything else about this. Does it taste the same? Forget the texture. Because I'll tell you, like, that's really where it becomes difficult.
How do you forget the texture?
Well, okay, so think about something like a burger bun. Burger bun at a QSR, right? They should all look perfectly identical. They should all eat perfectly identical. That's something where if it's not identical, then people are going to notice it, right? And that's pretty straightforward. Maybe you get into something like a biscuit, and biscuits, there's some irregularity there, right? Like the position where they sit on the pan when they get baked, the ones on the corners are a little darker. Or let's go to pizza. Pizza is so difficult to panel, because in the panel, you can't say you are only looking at what the crust does here, right? You can't say that, because then you are putting your thumb on the scale. And you simply want to say, is this the same as that? Do you detect a difference? Well, every slice of pizza from every pizza is different. They're fingerprints, right? Is the exact amount of cheese used the same, the exact amount of sauce, exactly how it went through the oven? And no, every piece of pizza is different. So when you're trying to show a customer, like, no, these are identical, it can be really hard to do that with a typical panel, because it's hard if you serve people 2 slices of pizza from the exact same pie to get them to say, yep, those are identical.
Yeah. Well, can we go into like the types, like a triangulation, an odd one out versus, I mean, there's got to be different approaches.
So, sort of the gold standard is a triangle, right? Where you're actually, I keep saying it's 2 things. It's 3 things. And one of these things is not like the other. Can you figure that out? And so that's where we kind of run into issues with something like pizza should be really straightforward there, but sometimes those fail just because they're all different. The identical things are different, or, it can go that direction. So we'll also do, there's some other panels that we'll do sort of an acceptability, and so people are given maybe a 9-point scale, and like, how much do you like this thing? How much do you like that thing? And that can be useful when we're getting into heterogeneous products just by their nature, right? And so you do that, and those numbers aren't as meaningful as a triangle, but sometimes those are the best numbers that you're going to get.
Yeah. So I think this is just such a fascinating capability in San Antonio that I know people drive by all the time, have no idea this goes on. Okay, so I know what you do. Are there other parts of the company doing interesting things that would be just worth like kind of highlighting?
So first off, I think folks here, if they know C.H. Guenther, they might be familiar with things that are on the grocery store shelf here, right? The Pioneer brand. But we actually have, I think I get this number right, 32 plants around the world. So we're all over North America. I think around 2/3 of the facilities are in North America, and then we've got another third that are over in Europe, so Europe and the UK. They all do different things. There are some places where we're sort of duplicating what we do, but we have several different R&D facilities. And so we've got people who are sort of experts in their areas that are often based at plants. So yeah, there's a pretty diverse range of things that we do.
So there's R&D facilities and then production facilities.
Yeah, and sometimes they're attached.
And is the one here R&D or both?
So here our R&D is separate from the production facility. Actually, for the first 5 or so years that I was with the company, so I've been there 20 years. We were based at the mill, which is down in King William, and people sort of know it as the Tower of Flour. It's sort of a cultural icon in King William. So we were attached to it then, and then eventually we moved over to the corporate office. So our R&D is now based, it's not too far away, but that's up on Broadway.
And the R&D focus that you all have is not necessarily the one that other groups in the company and other places?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So, you know, in our desserts facility in Salt Lake City, the R&D folks there they're focused on desserts. They're not really too worried about biscuits or tortillas, where we've got a different facility.
Yeah, I guess I'm interested if like two R&D facilities doing gravies. I'm going to pick on gravy because it just seems like the fun one to pick on, but it would be kind of like, yeah, we both did this thing, but we ended up in wildly different places. How would you reconcile? Has that ever happened within the company?
Not really. I mean, you know, to some degree, in our corporate office here, we have folks that work on a lot of our legacy products, and that's the things that if people know C.H. Guenther and Pioneer, they think about, which is things like biscuits and gravies. But it does sort of spread out from there. But yeah, once you start looking at our other R&D facilities, so we don't do a lot of dessert development work here in San Antonio. The folks in Salt Lake City are the pros in that. Or artisan bread, they're in New Jersey. They know artisan bread. That's where our artisan bread facility is. So what we do try to do is create sort of points of collaboration, especially with folks that might be in another country, or I think it helps us get to solutions. And so we do try to encourage cross-pollination, where someone who works on artisan bread most of the time, it's not a bad idea maybe for them to talk to someone who works on high-speed bun lines, which are totally different, but look, they're still making a form of bread.
Wow, this is like way deeper in like the bread production than I have any knowledge of. It was a honey bun? What is that? Would that be an artisanal bread?
Yeah, probably not on the honey bun.
Or who would tackle honey buns? Just as a person who was a honey bun aficionado growing up.
You've really stumped me. Are you a honey bun guy?
I not now, but I used to. Yeah, always honey buns.
I mean, maybe there needs to be like an artisanal honey bun. I haven't
think
really
all
put a
honey
lot
buns
of
are
thought.
artisanal. I have not had a non-artisanal honey bun.
Yeah, I haven't put a lot of thought into honey buns.
You don't know anything about honey buns? You can't tell me like who is the leading honey bun expert?
Wow, no, you got me there. It's gonna be bad.
Well, okay. How did you get into this? It's just such an interesting career path. It feels like to end up, unless you were very like, that's where I'm going. Is this where you expected to be?
It absolutely wasn't where I was going. So you know, I went and got a philosophy degree from Trinity here. So that really was sort of a direct path into food science. I think.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Now, I ended up deciding that I wanted to work in restaurants for a while, so I went to culinary school. I was a little older than the average culinary school student, but you know, I did that. I worked front of the house for a while, just because I had no front of the house experience. So food and beverage at the Chicago Yacht Club. Shout out to CYC. So I did that for a few years. I really wanted to get into restaurant consulting. So, you know, there weren't TV shows at that time. I mean, this is 25 years ago. And I was sort of urged to go into that. I got my master's in hotel restaurant management, just because I thought, you know, that's something I should be doing. And then I got a call from a guy that was one of my, really was my first employer in the food industry. And he was working as a chef at C.H. Guenther. He asked if I knew anybody who might be interested. I was in Chicago at the time, and I said, I can give you a couple of names, but also, could I do it? I've never really understood what it is you do. And he said, oh yeah, you can totally do it. You should apply for it. So yeah, that's what ended up happening, and we moved back to San Antonio, and I started as a chef. So chefs for us, we do a lot of the front-end innovation, just sort of like, there is recipe development. There's also a lot of the operations, restaurant operations, you know, vetting that out, or home sort of operations of how do you make this thing in a home, as well as a lot of product training, and it's really, you know, working with the sales team. Yeah. So I did that for a while, and I was interested in food science. Imagine that. So I had a great boss that encouraged me to really sort of push more into the food science side and learn as much as I could. I dreaded the idea of manufacturing operations. I didn't want to go anywhere near them. They seemed, you know, scary. And he said, well, if you want to advance, you need to learn more about operations. So he pushed me into that. But over time, I found I was more and more interested in the science side of things, and really understanding the manufacturing side. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of some zigs and zags. But yeah, so now I work on the bakery side. So everything that we've got that falls under bakery. That's what I'm helping develop products for.
So do you take a lot of things like in beer, you do like your initial pilot system and then you scale it up, but it's not linear. Not everything is linear. Like hop additions are not linear. Do you find that in baking as well?
Honestly, not a lot. I mean, again, it depends on exactly what the product is, but by and large, for most of our products, so we don't really use pilot plants. It's either we're making it on the bench in our labs in San Antonio or one of our other facilities, or we are doing the smallest run possible actually out on the lines. And I would say, for the most part, we can get about 90% identical to plant product out of our R&D lab. And the methods for that are different. So that's a different. The actual ingredients are relatively linear. You'll get differences in hydration.
But like the baking, the way they bake, I guess they pass through a thing versus like go into a space.
Well, right. And so that is where we've got some great food scientists that have been doing this for a long time in the categories that they work in. And so, and also the way Jeremy makes a biscuit in our lab that is 90% identical to a biscuit that comes off of our lines could be quite different from the way Maxwell would make that same biscuit that is 90% identical to what comes off our lines. So they have really, food scientists have learned these tricks for how to do this. And it's pretty effective, and it makes absolutely no sense watching it in real time. But typically the only adjustments that we make in the plant, I mean, there's plenty of adjustments that get made, but as far as the formula itself, the ingredients that are going in, hydration's the biggest one. I mean, there's little sort of tuning that happens here and there, but it's relatively linear to go from bench to plant.
Wow. And do you have a group, I say this because I think I know the answer, but you have a group that's like, here's a product we have, now figure out a bunch of different uses for it that we can put on like the back to help customers how to utilize it.
That's 100% culinary. So
okay.
That is exactly right. You know, when we're launching a new product, we can't just go out there and say, here, buy new widget X. We have to say, here are all the things that you can do with widget X.
Yeah. How do you constrain, like how much freedom do you have within innovation in your space, right? Like do you have people back there that are just like, today I'm doing weird stuff with egg whites, and you're like, nah, man, like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is sort of the push and pull, right? That is the push and pull of developing new products, is trying to determine how close in should it be for ease of manufacturing, and how much do we want to push the envelope. And so I think that is a conflict that exists. And so, you know, we don't have a hard line between culinary and food science, but there is a soft line there. And so for culinary, we want them to kind of get wacky with things, right? We want them to push the envelope. And frankly, I should say that our culinary team, they have a lot of food science skills. So a lot of them actually really, I think everyone on our culinary team right now, they've all spent time in food science, like at the university level. So they have both of those things. They just prefer culinary. So we kind of try to get them to push the envelope on what's possible. And then we've got food scientists who are like, that'll never work in the plant. And so you meet in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you get to what the products are.
Oh, that's cool. Those would be cool meetings, I bet. They can be? Okay.
Well, and also what's great is sometimes you'll have food scientists that you think they're always like hyper concerned about, will this work in the plant? And sometimes they'll come to you with way crazier ideas than culinary would have, and say, that seems like a bad idea. Like, but I think there's a way to make it work. So.
Well, it seems like plants can adjust sometimes, so that give and take where you're like, well, the plant will have to modify whatever. And
but you know, you're always after trying to make things that are efficient for the plant. But you know, for myself, so I am not a trained food scientist, right? I like to go into plants and just ask the stupidest questions. And the nice thing is, because I don't have this baggage of I've been working in manufacturing on the line for decades, I can just ask stupid questions. And you'll get an eye roll from people in operations, or sort of, how seriously do I need to take you? But sometimes asking really stupid questions is sort of how you can accomplish things. Like, well, why couldn't we do that? And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess we could if we did this. Like, okay, maybe we try that.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we ask a question to everybody. Now, this will be fun. I know you will answer it appropriately. We've had some people who've answered in some weird ways. But best margarita in San Antonio.
Oh, geez. I don't want to answer this because I know you have such strong feelings.
I don't know. Everyone gets to have their own feelings. No. Where's yours?
My best margarita in San Antonio. I should just say Chili's, right? I mean,
You could.
You never saw that coming.
I did not see that coming. Although you like those chains, so you would love that.
I love
Yeah,
chains. They're consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I trust El Jaro.
You're just saying that.
No, is that yours?
Yeah, that would be probably, that'd probably be the one I would name. Yeah.
Like, all of the best margaritas, I feel like, are just slightly outside Loop 410. And as a Southtown guy, I hate that I have to go out there.
Do you know what Chad said? He said one outside of 1604 way up in Stone Oak. What was the name of it?
Tacos.
Okay, well.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, El Jaro.
Okay,
Yeah.
No, I think there's...
This show is sponsored by El Jaro de Arturo.
Yeah, that's a great
Really?
question.
That's your best one?
Yeah, I mean...
You're not like a La Fonda on Main, Steve's Margarita?
Man, Steve's Margarita, it's too sour. Like, it's incorrect. So yes, my wife, Mary, her favorite margarita is the Steve's. I'm like, it's just not right, though. It's not a margarita.
Yeah.
It's some...
Esquire has a good margarita.
Yeah?
Esquire?
I mean, I believe it.
Yeah, they have a
It's just I
fantastic
wouldn't
one.
think of
But they do some weird triple sec that I'm not familiar with, and that's why it's a little different. So okay, I love this. Another El Jaro vote. I think if we tallied them up, that might be winning.
No, that's kind of our, like, okay, maybe we'll go out to El Jaro. It's like it's
never
a
go to El
drive.
Jaro.
I don't tell you about it most of the time.
Oh, that's rude. I didn't know you went north of 410.
It's rare, but it happens. I have very strong opinions about correct and incorrect.
And you can. You're a food scientist.
Well,
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not a food scientist. I can just play one on a podcast.
I feel like you do it enough than you are, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So I think
it's
at this
not
point, you've been there long enough.
Well, no,
It's legit.
so I want to go with this for a second on the incorrect thing. Like, I have very strong opinions about how sandwiches should be formed and what should be on them and not on them. What the carrier should be. That's what we call the thing.
The carrier.
Yeah. What the
This is
carrier
what we've
should
been
be.
missing because we have a long-running debate here at Velocity about sandwiches. But please keep going.
Hold on. Tell me about the debate. I'd like to weigh in.
Most foods are sandwiches.
Oh, this is
Yeah, you know. I think.
Yeah,
you
no,
would-
I'm
tacos.
okay
Tacos
with
are
that.
sandwiches, obviously, because the carrier. That's what we need. If we say carrier, then it changes
You
everything.
sound like a pro.
Pizza is an open face sandwich.
Pizza, open face sandwich. Yeah. The food scientist said it. The food scientist said it. The food scientist told us to work right.
It's all sandwiches.
Yeah, if you have a carb-heavy carrier, it's a sandwich.
Yeah.
Changed my mind. I mean, really, if you start thinking about it that way, a lot of sandwiches in this world.
Okay. Where do you guys fall on tomatoes and their involvement with sandwiches?
Nasty. Raw tomato, nasty.
No.
They ruin. They ruin.
I'm with you.
It's a crime against nature.
Look at this. Look, so much agreement over here.
Yeah,
On this side of the camera, much agreement.
So
On that side of the
there's an
camera.
exception to this rule, though. So tomatoes should not be on sandwiches ever unless it's a tomato sandwich. Like a BLT, that's a tomato sandwich.
Oh, so you think that a tomato itself is like too powerful? So
No,
it shouldn't be on a
it's
sandwich?
just, it's wet and slimy and it causes problems in the sandwich.
So
It
how
destroys
does
shelf life.
How does a tomato sandwich get around being wet and slimy?
Well, I mean, a tomato sandwich, I don't think anyone makes a BLT and then like wraps it up and puts it in their lunchbox and takes it to work, right? I would
Right.
hope not.
Right.
Because it won't be a sandwich when you get it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a thing meant to be consumed immediately. But if tomato forms more or less the entirety of what's inside that sandwich, then it all works. Like the way it all works together is correct. But if you take a burger and you put slices of tomatoes on it, man, it just screws the whole thing up.
I agree. Like, I love avocado on there, but you put that on there and it just creates some like change in not viscosity. What's the coefficient of friction?
Yes,
like
no.
the bun is sliding around. You're like, well, that ruined
That's exactly it. And also sort of where you put the ingredients, how they're stacked is really critical. And yeah, if you want to do tomato in a sandwich, the way you do is you make like a tomato jam or you make a tomato spread, or you can use ketchup.
I was going
It's
to say
a
that's
way
called ketchup
Yep,
at this point.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It works great.
Wait,
It's
so
100%.
you, as a professional, should tell us the correct way to stack a burger.
Yeah, so there's a right way and a wrong way.
Yes, this is actually what we're here for.
The cheese needs to be on the bottom.
Okay.
The cheese needs to be on the bottom. You have to make sure that the cheese and meat ratio is correct. That's really critical. Shout out to Eric at Schreiber Foods because, man, he has really strong feelings about cheese to meat ratios.
Okay.
But
is there, like, can you give me a number? Like, how do I assess cheese to meat?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but like
a sandwich that nails meat to cheese ratio.
I'm not going to get into this right now because it's going to get me in trouble.
Yeah,
but yeah, like
if you were making a patty at home, like you'd make like I don't know, half a pound. How many slices of cheese?
Well, right, a half a pound is and this is in two separate patties. I want to be clear on that. Like a half a pound is it's too thick. The texture's not right.
Okay.
So you take
Pumpers.
2/4.
Let's go to a place here. Pumpers.
Yeah, Pumpers.
Is their meat and cheese the number one?
Probably, like, because it's 2 patties, 2 cheeses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and their patties, I think, are sub-quarter pound, right?
They're smashed and real thin and crispy.
Yeah. But like 2 cheeses and 2 meats, as long as your meats are roughly a quarter pound or a shade under, that's about the right ratio. And so, you do a cheese on the bottom, a patty, another cheese, a patty, and then
nobody does that. That's flipped upside down.
There are some who do it, and those who do are doing it right.
How do you do the rest of the stuff on there, though? Like, you've got, let's say you want to do accoutrements on top of that.
Well, so you can do some sauce on the bottom, you can do some sauce on the top. Pickles are great on the bottom. It's nice if you can get a little friction on the bottom, right? So things like crispy onions, like your Thanksgiving green bean topping, the crispy onions, you put those on top of your sauce, so you're creating a little friction on top of that thing that would be otherwise slick. You keep tomatoes the hell off the sandwich.
I agree with that.
Look, and also this isn't food sciencey stuff here. This to me is like sort of it's way more in the culinary realm. And so, I mean, the things that I geek out on that I don't think anyone cares about, or it was like, really? That? Like, I really geek out on like how a line is set up, like in a fast food restaurant, in a QSR, like how the line is set up, like for peak efficiency, like all the different steps that go in there, like is it being held warm the whole time? Like, where are the opportunities to improve that? So I really geek out on that, and I really geek out on sandwich construction.
So you geek out on the placement so that you can optimize efficiency and delivery of sandwich?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that once you get the thing, is it the best possible?
Well, I was thinking of like, it made me think of keyboards for some reason, and like, are you a QWERTY guy? Are you an anti-QWERTY?
No.
Because it's not. You got to be Dvorak.
I want to believe in it, but I just can't get there.
Just saying, it fits your mode of.
I've built keyboards too, right?
Yeah, I've gone down this rabbit hole as well. I think you and I go down similar rabbit holes.
It's sort of shocking. I was explaining this to someone yesterday about how, and then I went looking for rum because I decided I just was fascinated by tiki, and then ran into Jeremy at the best rum store.
Who's into rum now? Yeah. I've fallen out of rum though. Have you fallen out of rum?
Pretty much, yeah.
I got into keyboards, and so that's been my thing for a bit now. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. See, pretty straightforward. That was okay.
Totally.